Is there somebody that went through that program that you're most proud of?
All of them. I'm proud of all of them. One that sticks to mind is a gentleman that was retired, and both he and his wife went through, and they were in the middle to late 60s. And just to demonstrate to their family and to everyone that it's not too late to learn. They were able to get through it, and we had ceremonies with caps and gowns and pomp and circumstance and mints and nuts and the whole ball of wax, and those are the best memories that I have, for sure.
What are some of the things that you miss now that you're no longer at the plant? Because it was such a lifestyle that, like you said, it was a city unto itself, but now, life goes on.
I miss getting up at 3:30 in the morning. Just kidding.
No, I wasn't going to laugh. I was like, sure, 3:30.
But that's, I worked quite a few years on night shift, and then I worked quite a few years on day shift. And about the last 15 years, I started at 5 a.m. So I would get up at 3:30 in the morning.
3:30.
It's a great time of day to get up, actually. Everything's
really
quiet. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think the people is what I miss the most. Being able to help people, seeing the light bulb go on, knowing people understand, they get it. One of the things that just before I retired is when, of course, the plant was announced that it was closing. So a lot of the employees had to decide what they were going to do, whether they were to go back to school or wait for a transfer or whatever. I miss the people that came to me and said, well, what should I do? What area should I get into? What job is recession-proof? And, of course, there's
What's
no
right
job.
fit for me?
Right. And that's what I would say. Well, what are your interests? What would you like to do? And it gave me a lot of satisfaction with helping them, walk through that process and walk through the enrollment process and wherever they wanted to go, and using the tuition assistance program, which was a program that UAW and GM had, and try to make them aware of what was going to be required of them, because for a lot of them they had maybe not been in school for 25 or 30 years. So you can imagine what type of anxiety and stress they had going back to school. Like maybe they weren't successful when they were in high school. Maybe they didn't finish high school. Maybe they had no plans whatsoever of ever going back to school. But now they had to make a choice.
Right.
And
but if they worked at the plant and their parents worked at the plant, then
absolutely generational, and we talk about that a lot. It's no one ever expected not to work 30 years and retire. When they hired in, they always figured it was going to be there, a great job, great pay, great benefits. And then when that was taken away from them, there was some anger. There was some anger, whether it was at the UAW, GM, at the educational system, or people were angry. But a lot of them did decide to go back to school, and as I just said earlier, I was involved with Black Hawk Technical College. A lot of them are very successful. A lot of them took a little while to get back into the educational environment.
That was actually my next question. So now you're involved with Black Hawk Technical College.
Yes.
So you really see these people that are kind of making the transition from the plant to college.
Right.
I would imagine they're probably glad to see you whenever,
Yeah, it's...
because it's a familiar face.
Yeah, right. I'm on the board of directors, so I'm not involved in the actual teaching, but I try to spend a lot of time on campus and run into friends and coworkers, and it's good to hear that they're enjoying it, they're being successful.
I would imagine a lot of those fears were unrealized.
Absolutely. A lot has changed in the educational environment in the last 25 years since I was in high school, say. So, who would have ever thought that you had to have computer skills to do research papers and all of that nature, where unless
back then computers were, you had a printout card with a hole punched in it.
And unless you had to use a computer in your job at General Motors, you may not have those skills. So just the academic skills put aside, just the skill of having computer knowledge was very important, which a lot of the people going back to school may not have had. So there's a lot of very fundamental skills that were needed.
Well, in talking to some of the workers who are now going to school, Blackhawk or UROC, one of the big changes I'm hearing is that these people are not used to taking work home with them. You came to a plant, you did your job, you left. And now there's stuff you have to take with you and do homework, do at home.
Yeah, I don't think there are many jobs anymore where you can drop it off at 3:30 at the door and not take it home with you. You know, there's most all jobs now you're at least thinking about it or strategizing while you're at home. But you're right. In the assembly world, you could, when the whistle blew, you could stop and not think about it until the next day. Now, as you know, that just going to class is a small part of getting an education. There's a lot of other time needed to complete that. And that was one of the things that I talked to the employees about is time management. Right now we all have 24 hours in a day.
I like this right now.
Yeah,
it could change.
But. Yeah, and it's filled up with sleeping and whatever the case may be, eating, exercising. So when you go back to school, you have to figure out what are you going to cut back on. Is it going to be sleeping? Is it going to be spending time with your family? Is it going to be exercising? What are you going to cut back on? Because unless you make that commitment that you're going to be serious about it, the chances of you being successful are going to be smaller than if you actually set aside X number of hours per week and devote that to your education. And I would, for me right now to go back to school, it'd be hard for me to decide what I wanted to give up.
Well, what are your interests?
Yeah, right. No, actually, it would be fun to go back to school now, I think. When I went to school, it was kind of in the late 60s, early 70s, and you kind of get through it as fast as you can and then move on to something else, where to go back now and maybe take your time learning, I think for me it would be more valuable this next time around if I were to decide to do that. Not that I didn't learn anything the first time, but...
Well, for what I hear, non-traditional students sometimes are the best students because they bring a new perspective into the classroom. Exactly. They know why they're doing this. This is not just generic education. There's a specific reason for it.
That's real life learning they're bringing to the classroom. And I've heard that from some of the instructors at Blackhawk, too, where they can teach theory, but unless you've actually done it, it's a different story. So
to kind of round it off, if somebody... if you could summarize the plant experience and the plant impact on Janesville, what would you say?
For me, the General Motors experience was great. Was great. I always seemed to be in a place where I didn't have to go through a lot of layoffs. I always seemed to be in an area where I could keep working. As far as its impact on the community, I know when people first heard that the General was closing, you know, everyone was in shock because we had heard it for many years. You know, yeah, General Motors Janesville is going to close, and no one really believed it. And this time when it came through, the initial shock was, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to Janesville and in Rock County? I don't think the real effect of it we've even seen yet. I think it's yet to come, because some of the people that were laid off are now coming up to ending of their benefits completely. So I think we haven't weathered the storm yet, and the domino effect we're certainly seeing with the close of Lear and LSI and some of the other source plants, which also, you know, restaurants laying off, theaters, because people don't have that.
But at the same time, it's also changing what we're about.
Right, exactly. It's redefining Janesville, possibly.
As one of earlier guests said, we're a work in progress.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So,
Tom, thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure.